just want to let you guys know this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you need to talk to a licensed therapist, be sure to visit BetterHelp. And when you sign up, visit betterhelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice. Be sure to do that, guys. Your well-being is worth it. What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. And today, guys, we are going to be discussing the Indianapolis Colts players who are facing make or break seasons. So we got a good number of players here, Derek, with a lot of question marks around this Indianapolis Colts team in 2025. We got a lot of different players that we're going to highlight here today. And the first one we got to start with is the player that is the most obvious here, Derek, and that is quarterback Anthony Richardson. It's been well documented, Derek, at this point, how much he struggled in 2024 and just the issues he had with the inaccuracy issues, with some of the question marks on his leadership, with question marks on just a lot of different things. And even the injuries are another thing we talked about. So there was a lot of question marks around Anthony Richardson. And obviously the Colts felt like they needed to bring in some sort of competition, a la bring in Daniel Jones to compete in this room. But Derek, really when it comes down to it, Anthony Richardson is kind of the pinnacle of this video, right? The pinnacle of this topic, if you will, because if he makes it or breaks it, it'll determine a lot about the future of a lot of people who are in charge right now for this Indianapolis Colts team, because we know how important the quarterback position is. We know how important it is to make sure you get that right. And I don't care if you have one of the best rosters in the NFL, it's going to be hard to compete for championships year in and year out if you don't have that position right.
Yeah, it doesn't just affect this season. It could drastically affect how this organization does things going forward based on how Anthony Richardson and company does this next year. Because if Anthony Richardson is not better than Daniel Jones, or at least even on the same level as Daniel Jones, and for some reason the Indianapolis Colts go ahead and start Daniel Jones, then you start to have a situation where I think the problem is I think the Colts will still tell people that Anthony Richardson's still young and he still needs to figure it out. But I think even some of the most diehards of diehards for Anthony Richardson will tell you they don't have faith anymore, because you had this entire offseason to fix your game, and you were in it healthy, and you still can't beat out Daniel Jones is another thing. And even if he does beat out Daniel Jones, I mean, Cody, if we see another Anthony Richardson like what we saw last year, where, it was a touchdown and an interception, some fumbles, injuries, inconsistencies in passing, all of this other stuff, then you're right. It could be a situation where we're looking at, a new GM, possibly a new head coach, a lot of different things going down the drain, and Indianapolis would basically just start going wholesale, and, a lot of things would change. So, this season really does help determine a lot. Either some guys are going to get fired at the end of this year, or some guys are going to get to keep their jobs, because Anthony Richardson did in fact show, enough that, this team can look forward and can go forward with this guy. And, we'll just have to see. But you're right. This whole season is basically going to come down to what Anthony Richardson can show.
Yep. He's got a lot to prove, that's for sure. And it's really going to make or break his, obviously, future with the Indianapolis Colts, and a lot of people's futures at that. So Yep, he's definitely the pinnacle of this topic for sure. But another guy that we can talk about on the offense, actually, I can point to two guys here that he's likely going to be throwing the ball to in some capacity, are two of the tight ends that were taken in the 2022 draft. Of course, talking about Jelani Woods and Andrew Ogletree. Jelani Woods, more of the health thing. We haven't seen him for 2 years. He's, continued to stay injured, continue to not be available. So we don't even know at this point what Jelani Woods could even do if he's on the field because we just haven't seen it. And Andrew Ogletree, obviously, he's going to be pushed down the depth chart with Tyler Warren now on the roster. So he's entering a contract year as well as Jelani Woods. And both these guys, they got a lot to prove. They definitely both have shown flashes, but for different circumstances right now, both their questions with this team are in doubt right now. I mean, we don't know definitively if either of these guys are going to be a long-term piece for the Indianapolis Colts. So regardless of what their roles are, I think they need to prove to the Indianapolis Colts that they have some staying power on this roster, because if not, I don't think the Colts will have a single problem with, at this time next year, both of them being on a different team.
Yeah, both young guys that, Ogletree definitely been a lot more of an available player, but has certainly had his fair share of some issues, some inconsistencies in the play. And then, of course, with Jelani Woods, it's just been the inability to stay healthy. First year, that rookie season, I mean, he did such a great job. And, he was one of the few bright spots, Cody, in a 2022 offense that was just abysmal. And, he is one of the few things that got you excited going forward. But now we just have a situation where, he has just been injured upon injured and has just never gotten back. So we certainly hope that he will be able to do that because, like you said, if he spends another year not being available, then I don't know what you do with him at that point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we were already saying operate like he's not on the roster, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what you had to do because he just proved that he couldn't play on the field because he was off the field the majority of it. So it's just unfortunate because, man, that 2022 season, there were so many good flashes. Like, he showed some really, really excellent growth that year. And then it just felt like from there on, he just never could get right. It's just a bummer. So, yeah, we're not talking about him a lot right now, but the hope is that he can be the guy that we saw in 2022. Hopefully he can get into that. But, Derek, we are not by any stretch anticipating that for Jelani Woods. But I'm hoping he surprises everybody. I'm hoping he surprises us. I'm hoping he surprises the fans. I'm hoping he surprises the organization because on paper, like a healthy Jelani Woods and a Tyler Warren, that's exciting. But again, it's hard to get excited after this guy hasn't played 2 years, at this point. So it's just hard to see that. But yeah, both these guys, a lot to prove in contract years. We'll see how it works out for both these players. And then when you're moving to the offensive line, the last piece of the offense we'll talk about here today, you talk about Braden Smith. This one was going to be an obvious one, Derek, because you pretty much know from left tackle all the way to right guard, all these guys are young or under contract. Braden Smith is the only of the 5 starters on that offensive line that's in a contract year. He's the only notable starter that his future with the Colts is very uncertain at this point, right? I mean, we already know the Colts lost 2 guys this last year to free agency. So what's going to be the future of Braden Smith? I think the biggest thing for me, similar to Jelani Woods, although obviously not as bad, was the fact that he has dealt with different things that has kept him off the field, right? Obviously, we know the mental stuff last year that he dealt with, all the religious group reality or whatever that was called, all that stuff he dealt with. And I'd encourage you, if you haven't read or heard him speak, go do that. And then obviously he's had his fair share of injuries as well the last couple of years. So he hasn't been on the field a ton for the Indianapolis Colts. And when you're paying Braden Smith what you're paying him, even now, even though he did take a pay cut, you still expect him to be on the field for a good majority of the snaps during the season. And the fact is, the last 2 years, he hasn't been. So you got to make sure, and Braden Smith, I mean, good to hear that he's in a much better spot. Seems like he's probably the healthiest mentally he's been in a while, which is great to hear. From a purely Colts and, financial standpoint and roster building standpoint, Braden Smith's got a lot to prove this year. He's got to prove that he can be the long-term guy for the next couple of years for the right tackle position, because Braden Smith's not that old. Like, he's only, in his late 20s. So he's still, theoretically, from a physical standpoint, he's still got a few years left, if not more than that. So you do believe that if he can be right and if he can stay healthy, you could bring him back next year. You could bring him back next year, but it's all going to depend on what 2025 looks like for Braden Smith. So what are your thoughts there on kind of what he has to prove here for the Colts in 2025 to potentially be a long-term piece, get a contract extension at this time next year, and be a Colt for the next number of years?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people who watch this might have some recency bias. We're not trying to in any way say what happened with Braden Smith at the end of last year is a recurring thing, and that has been the reason behind some of this. I think most people will agree that even before what went down at the end of this last year, Braden Smith has had a long list of times where, he's just been unavailable. Numerous injuries throughout his career that have, sidelined him for several games. And it's at that situation where, we need him to be around. And, if he's not going to be available because of more injuries, then, the Indianapolis Colts will likely be looking at drafting their next right tackle in the 2026 draft. So that'll be something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, Braden Smith, I mean, no doubt, if he comes back this next year, plays the majority of the games, and has a good year where, he's back to his normal self and, just continues to be the Braden Smith that we know, then no doubt that Ballard is going to want to try to give him an extension, keep him around for as long as you can. But yeah, it's all indefinitely going to come down to whether or not Braden Smith is going to, be around for the majority of the season. What's going on, everybody? Just wanted to say this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Guys, everyone wants to try to take care of their bodies and do the best that they can to help take care of themselves. But that also starts with your mind as well. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And of course, when you're doing potential therapy, in-person therapy can cost anywhere up to $100 to $250 per session, guys. That number can add up very quickly. But with BetterHelp, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you can pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, which can help you save on costs and time as well. Therapy should feel accessible, guys, not a luxury. You should be able to talk to someone the way you want to, when you want to. With online therapy, you can get quality care at a price that makes sense for you. Regardless, guys, if you have ever been in therapy or not, it is important to be able to get everyday stresses and sometimes even traumas that we experience off our chest and be able to talk to someone and go through those stresses. Your mental health is super important. We're all dealing with something. So take advantage and be able to get ahead of what might be bothering you. Remember, guys, your well-being is worth it, and it's now within reach. Visit betterhelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice.
Yep, absolutely. He's got to stay on the field from a physical standpoint, and if he can do that, that'd be great. We'd love to have him around for the next number of years, but because we know, Derek, when he's on the field, he can be a really good right tackle, but he's just got to stay on the field physically, and if he can do that, he's got all the physical issues figured out, I feel confident about that, but we'll have to see. It's up to him, up to his body, I guess, more than just him, up to his body. If it can hold up, that'd be great. But anyway, let's continue on. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of things here, Derek. We have three guys we want to talk about today. We'll start actually on all three levels. So we'll start with the first level on that defensive line. Derek, Quity Pay's got a lot to prove here. I mean, another defensive coordinator that he's got to figure out where he belongs here. I mean, obviously, Derek, we know when the Colts drafted him, he was a Matt Eberflus pick, right? He was there for the final year of Matt Eberflus's defense, and then you saw 2022, Gus Bradley came in, and now you see a new defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo coming in to the fold here. So when you think about Quity Pay, Derek, I mean, he's never been this crazy sack guy. He's been a solid player, really good run defender, but now the Indianapolis Colts, the last two drafts, have brought in two young defensive linemen that potentially could be stealing snaps away from Quity Pay. Maybe, maybe not. But regardless of that, his question and his future with the Indianapolis Colts, it's very much in question, Derek. We don't know what it's going to look like beyond this year. He's in the final year of that fifth-year option, so he's done after this year's contract is over after this year. So he's got a lot to prove here, Derek, that he can still be a piece of this defense with a different defensive coordinator now. So he's having to learn the third different defense in his time with the Indianapolis Colts. So all that to say, Quity Pay's got a lot that he has to prove here on that defensive line.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that for this, in the entirety of this defensive line, especially in the edge group, there has to be somebody that steps up and, does something to be able to set this team up to have some success. Because, we have just not had any success with edge guys since Ballard has gotten here. And we're still waiting. The jury is still out on Latu. You just brought in JT Tuimuluau. Quity Pay obviously has, he improved this last season. Certainly wonder if that will continue because he was actually healthy this last year and was actually able to figure things out. And then Ebukam, who knows how he's going to be after that injury. So, for a guy, especially like a Quity Pay, who is, about to go into his fifth year of his contract, he definitely, I know the Colts will definitely want to keep him around, but if he's a guy that's just not going to get after the passer, then he's not going to get a contract that he probably thinks he should get. And that is a circumstance that, the Colts just can't wrap their heads around right now. So hopefully Quity Pay will take a better stance going forward and, we'll be able to improve drastically from what we have already seen. Because, yeah, it definitely will be interesting because, like you said, we brought in all these new guys. And how will Quity Pay handle it, sharing the time with all these guys? Guess we'll have to find out.
Yep, absolutely. The next guy I want to highlight here, Derek, is somebody that fans might be like, really? You're putting him on this list? But I did have Zaire Franklin on this list just because of all the stuff that happened last year. I know we had a lot of tackles. I mean, everybody points to that. But beyond that, when you dive a little bit deeper, it wasn't good, Derek, from the missed tackles to the poor coverage grade to the drama off the field. It was just a whole thing last year with Zaire Franklin. And I know he just recently met the media and kind of was reflecting a little bit on what happened last year with the ego stuff and all that. But regardless of what happens, Derek, the reality is that from a play standpoint, there was a lot wrong with Zaire Franklin's 2024 season. I mean, just a lot of issues that went down. I mean, I know he's a guy that's a captain right now, but Derek, like the same with some of these other players that have been in the system for a while. This is a new system, and the new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, he's obviously changing some things about it, about the different guys that he's brought in and just what he's going to ask certain players to do. So Zaire Franklin definitely got a lot to prove here, Derek, that he can be a long-term piece in this defense, now that there's a new guy here that he's not super familiar with that might be looking to add some different personnel, say he's here for 2026. Who knows what he's going to be looking for when it looks for in terms of linebackers. So what are your thoughts just when it comes to Zaire Franklin and kind of what he has to prove here? Not saying he's going to get outright cut next year, but there's a lot of question marks about what's going to happen with a lot of these guys on defense. We saw the Colts obviously bringing a ton of guys this offseason, especially in the defensive back room. But who knows in 2026 what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot for Zaire Franklin because we're not approaching it in the sense of that this guy is not a good player. But you're right. There were a lot of distractions last year, a lot of things that had to do with the podcast and the whole Pat McAfee situation. It's not really a matter of where he stands within the team's confines, but it's mainly just about the fan perception of him has dropped tremendously because the attitude of how a lot of fans feel about Zaire Franklin is not going in the right direction. And it has nothing to do with how bad the defense was last year. It has nothing to do with how bad the team was last year. A lot of it just had mainly to do with the fact that, he was a loudmouth in certain aspects where he should have just kept his mouth shut. That's just the God honest truth. And, if he does better about it this year, then, the fandom respect will come back. And, you're right. With Lou Anarumo now coming into the fold, how does that impact his play? Because last year he had a lot of missed tackles, and that certainly cannot happen this year. He was out of position a lot last year as a linebacker, and that really hurt the run defense. So how does all of this fold for Zaire Franklin? Because you're right, there's a lot that he's going to have to focus on this year, both from a personal aspect and from a football aspect. So certainly hoping that he can get it together because we can't have the leader of our defense being the way that he was last year.
Yeah, it was just not good. Not good at all. So there's a lot of aspects on the field and off the field that need to definitely be better in 2025. All right, the last guy I will highlight is, and you'll notice a trend here, Derek, of some of these guys that have high ceilings, but unfortunately have been derailed by injuries. And the final guy we got to highlight is another one of those guys. That's being Juju Brents, the cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts, who taken in round 2 of 2023. And so far, Derek, through 2 years, it's been similar to Jelani Woods. Injuries upon injuries upon injuries. Every time I got back on the field, another injury happened. It just felt like it was continuing to snowball this year, where it's like he got injured in after week 1, came back to the end of the year, the last game, got injured again. And you're just like, are you kidding me? That's insane that he got injured twice in the course of one season. Just crazy. So when looking at Juju Brents, obviously the talent is there. There's no question about that. But Derek, it's a deep corner class this Colts team has. It's a deep group. I mean, you brought in Javarius Ward. You drafted Justin Wally as well. You've added multiple guys into this room, fresh blood into this room that already had players like Jalen Jones, who was a starter last year, Samuel Womack, who was a starter for the majority of the year last year, Kenny Moore, who's been a starter for a number of years here in the slot. So where does Juju Brents fit in? Does he have a roster spot? Does he get any sort of time? I don't know the answer to that, Derek, because he's not going to just be handed cornerback number 1 on the outside this year. He's going to have to earn his way on the field. He's going to have to, number 1, stay healthy, and number 2, earn it. So what are your thoughts there on just the fact that Juju Brents doesn't have a clear path to even see the field as a starter this year?
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised, right? I mean, it's when it comes to the availability aspect, the best ability is availability. And if Juju Brent certainly hasn't been that. So, of course, if he wants any time to be able to, resurge and get more playing time and more involved in this team, then he's going to have to be available. That's the number one thing. I mean, it's great that Chris Ballard went out and got guys that now we don't have to necessarily worry about that as much now because you have Charvarius Ward as your cornerback 1. You feel confident in Jalen Jones being your outside cornerback too. So, you have a great situation with that. Just ultimately, what does that do for Juju Brents? And, that's great that Juju Brents is going to be looked at to the start of the year as a depth piece. As, some guy gets injured or needs a break, Juju Brents can come out and do something in that regard. Who knows? Maybe that'll help his durability going forward. Doesn't have to be out there every play. Doesn't have to, have that wear and tear on his body. Who knows? But I mean, we know he's got talent. Just ultimately what makes or breaks it is just a matter of whether or not he can stay on the field. Because like you said, Cody, I mean, that first year he missed the back half of the year, even missed the first game because he was still dealing with, he had his injury. He made it into training camp in the final 2 weeks, and the Colts said that he still wasn't ready, like from a mental standpoint, to be in the game. So they didn't play him right away. But then he played for, 6 weeks and then got injured, then didn't play the rest of the time. And then you're right, like he gets hurt in the Texans game week 1, doesn't play again until week 18 when the season is practically over at that point, plays for a few plays and then gets injured and doesn't come back in. It's like, how much more? I mean, there's nothing to go off of. So you're right. If Juju doesn't stay healthy and doesn't stay on the field this year, then what does that do for his status to be on this team next year?
Right. And I mean, honestly, Derek, like, your top 3 corners pretty much, right? You would think. I'm looking at, especially if the Colts play more dime, right, where you're going to have maybe a 4th corner on the field. Like, can he compete for that even? And he's going to have some fierce competition. I mean, Derek, he's going to have like Samuel Womack. He's going to have Justin Wally. He's going to have multiple guys vying for that position. Other guys who are very hungry for that position. So I don't know. It's going to be crazy. Like, he's not just going to be like, oh, he's at the minimum, going to be a depth piece. I don't even know if he's going to be that, Derek. I don't know right now. We don't know right now what's going to happen there. It's going to be kind of crazy. I do wonder if the Colts will look at any of these guys and say, hey, have you thought about some safety maybe? Like, because that's just that many guys. It's like, would a guy fit a little bit better from his skill set, to play a little bit more safety so that you're not having to cut one of these corners, because there's a lot of guys that have proven when they're on the field, they can actually be pretty solid. So I'll just be so intrigued about that, how that cornerback room plays out. Because, I mean, it's not even factoring in guys like, Corey Ballantyne, who you brought in to play special teams. Like, there's a lot of guys in your cornerback room right now. And I am just going to be so intrigued. I mean, training camp's going to be so fun to see. Who are the guys that rise up, and who are the guys that aren't going to make this roster?
Yep, absolutely, man.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for our thoughts here on some players who are facing make or break seasons for the Indianapolis Colts. I'd be curious your guys' thoughts. Leave those in the comments down below. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. But, again, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, as always, guys, go Colts.